Hello everyone, my name's Jono. Welcome to the channel. This is another video in my regular series where I look at vintage cameras in my collection. If that's something that appeals to you and you like what you see, would really appreciate a like, subscribe, comment. Any kind of interaction is really good for me in the channel. Big video this time because rather than focusing on one particular camera, as there are so many different options, I've tried to lump them all together and look at the entire range of the classic Kodak Instamatic. So here's the new intro for you, and I'll see you on the other side. So here we go. This is one example of the Kodak Instamatic, possibly one of the most popular series of cameras ever produced, certainly in terms of getting people interested in photography because of their simplicity and everything. They began production in 1963 and they went through sort of various changes. Between 63 and 70, over 50 million of these were sold. They did then sort of gradually add different features, and they're broken down into several sort of groups, if you like, but I'll go through all that. Produced by Kodak, manufactured in the US and the UK and also Germany, etc. And yeah, just a really popular and successful range of cameras. The name Instamatic has become a bit like Hoover in the fact that often people refer to their vacuum cleaner as a Hoover even if it wasn't actually manufactured by Hoover. And this is the same with the Instamatic. A lot of times that word is used to describe any sort of cheap point and shoot camera, but technically it is just this range, although there were sort of other manufacturers that sort of tried to copy the format. This is the original. From 1972, Kodak did introduce a new variant known as the Pocket Instamatic, which sold into the 90s, in fact, but I'm not going to talk about that too much in this series. I might reserve that for a future video. But the original Instamatic, the last was sold, or manufactured rather, in about 1988. The majority of the Instamatics used Kodak's 126 film, which I've talked about before, and I'll leave a link to that video up here when I publish this one. But it was a cartridge film. Basically, you could insert it when you finished it. It included a frame counter, so on the back of the cameras you had a little window that you could see the frame count. There was no need to rewind it. You just took the film out of its cartridge and sent it off to your local pharmacy or whatever it was. So it was nice and simple. Some of the later models also featured 110 film, which again is a cartridge base but a narrower film to in order to make the cameras narrower as well. I myself own 3 different Instamatics at the moment. So this is the 133, which is actually the very first camera I ever owned. I've talked before about my very first SLR. That was before this. At the age of, I seem to remember, about 10, my father bought me an Instamatic 133 and I absolutely loved it. I think I pretty much used it until I wore it out. So when I was searching for one, the 133 was the first one I was after. I've also got a 204 here, which is slightly different, and I'm very lucky to have the original box for that as well. And then finally, I have, let's get these out of the way, I have a 77X, which again, I'm lucky enough to have in its original packaging. The model numbers are a little confusing, but generally speaking, the lower the number, the older the camera. If the number ends in a 0, they normally have a pop-up flash. If the number ends in a 4, they have a flash cube socket on top, like this one. And then if they have X on the end, so in the case of my 77X, they have the magic cube. But I'll come back to that in a bit more detail. So if we look at my 133 first of all, pretty straightforward, not much to show you really. Started manufacturing this one in 1968, so it was very popular in the early 70s. Shutter speed was fixed at either 1/80th of a second if the lens was turned to this little sunlight logo. If it was turned to the sort of dimmer light, if you like, and flash, then it was 1/40th of a second. No focusing, the lens was fixed focus. It was an f11 lens, 43mm, but yeah, just fixed focus. Viewfinder, obviously, on the back as well. Like I say, the cartridge window, we can, I'll open up the back in a second, wind on the film via this lever here, and obviously we have our shutter button on the top. To open the camera on the side, we have a little switch here which you get your nail into, oops, and there inside, not too dissimilar to 35mm, but I don't know if you can make out, it does tell you here that it takes 126 film, which was Kodak's own. It literally just slotted in one big cartridge, and when you got to the end you took it out as well. So as I said to you, flash cube on top, socket on top, but there also was a 133X, which, as I say, took the Magic Cube, which was a different brand, and I'll come back to that in a moment. There's a little strap mount here to obviously fit a wrist strap to it, as they mostly came with one, although mine's missing off this one. You've also then got a battery compartment. Sorry, it's on this side, my apologies. Battery compartment here, and it took two AA batteries in order to power the flash. And that's kind of it for the 133. So this one is the 204, made just from 66 to 68. This one was produced just in England, I think, as it's sort of emblazoned made in England all over it. Nice little camera, slightly more features on this one, but as you can see, a little bit more chunky if I compare it to the 133. There's quite a difference in depth, if you like, but pretty similar in size otherwise. So we have our lens, this time it's an f6.6 41mm lens. Again, fixed focus, we can't adjust the focus, but we can adjust the aperture. So we have a little pointer here, if you like, which correlates to another one pointing up here on this side. So to explain, we've got aperture symbols here. So at the moment we're pointing to sunny. The aperture is relatively narrow, and if we move that up to sort of somewhat overcast, it opens slightly, to overcast, it opens further, and finally to dark, it's fully open. And the other arrow moves obviously in correlation to that, so it's talking about flash distance effectiveness. We've got on our sunniest option, flash will only work 3 feet or 1 meter, and as it gets darker, or as we open up the aperture, we go up to 12 feet or 4 meters. And so our little flash settings are here, which is quite a nice little feature, really. That keeps it nice and simple for people to understand. We've our viewfinder window, obviously, which corresponds to the back. We can open up the camera again by pressing our little button here. Whoops. And so again, 126 film works exactly the same way. Wind on lever here, which you had to wind on a couple of times in order for the shutter to work. And in fact, I have to because there's no film in here, I have to manually click that across so that it thinks that the film was wound on, and now I can press the shutter button. Okay, we've got again the flash cubes socket here, which once you inserted that, this changes the shutter speed. So by default it was 1/60th of a second. By inserting the flash, it went to 1/40th of a second. This little button here just ejected the flash. It just popped it off the interface, if you like, again. So again, nice little camera. We've got a wrist strap here, and again, batteries required, 2 AAA batteries this time, which were inserted here. Yeah, nice little camera with just slightly more features than the 133. And as I say, I'm lucky enough to have the original box as well, which I'm quite pleased with. Finally, then, we have the 77X, which I'll just take out of its packaging. There is a cover for this as well, but I've just taken it off for the purposes of the video. So yes, this is the 77X. So this is quite a low-end version, really. Again, made in the UK and also in Germany between 1977 and 1984. This time we've got an f11 lens, 43mm again, fixed focus, we can't change the focus, and just one blanket shutter speed of 1/50th of a second. The X, as I said to you, related to slightly different flash now. We had this Magic Cube system, which was very similar to the other one. And again, I've got the original packaging here, $3.99 from Super Snap. So quite expensive, actually, if you think about it, from late 70s. And I do have one Magic Cube flash in here, although long since used, can't be used again, but you can see that that will fit on top. And that's the system. So quite similar to the Flash Cube, which didn't have the X on the end, whereas this, as I say, the Magic Cube was supposedly an improvement, but I don't really see a lot of difference between them. Again, winder on the back would turn the flash, and your shutter would obviously fire the flash if it was fitted, and it was just a case of repeating the process. Viewfinder again, and on the back, and our window, and obviously we can open up the back, which is just down here again, and all very similar inside. So yeah, even less to this one than the other models, but nonetheless quite interesting, and I do like it. As I say, the fact that it came with the packaging, and it's still got its wrist strap here as well, I think it makes it a little bit more interesting. So pleased with that. So yeah, my 3 Instamatics. I'm still on the lookout for more. You can't buy 126 film anymore, but you know, I just think they're very sweet little cameras. 133 is my favourite, simply the fact that it was the very first camera I ever owned, and I'm sure a lot of people across the world have very fond memories of their one. I will buy some more and make future videos, but rather than me sort of talking about each one individually, I'll perhaps do another wrap-up. But yes, have a search for Instamatic and see if you can find the one that suited you. So there you go, another video in the bag. I hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you very much for spending the time watching. I'll see you again soon.